What's going on YouTube? We are back for another one today, and what we're going to go over is how to install a brand new fork. Now, I would have loved to have put a Fox 36 on this bike, but on my Vitus, I spent only $600, so I didn't want to put a $1,000 fork. It just didn't make financial sense. So I had to find a bargain, and I'm going to show you what I got. So what's coming off of the bike is going to be this SR Suntour XCR. I have a few beefs with it, so it's got to come off. One of which is the 32mm stanchions are a little bit flexy in my opinion. I weigh 200 pounds, so I need a beefier fork. I don't really like silver stanchions. I don't like the way they look, so that needs to go. And then the other issue I have with it is it has almost no small bump sensitivity, but it's really quick to blow through its travel on big hits. So yeah, I'm just going to put some a little bit more sophisticated on it and see how it goes. So the fork you see is the X-Fusion Slide. It's a 34mm stanchion fork with 140mm travel. There's not a whole lot of reviews out on it, but it was only 1,900 grams, which is pretty light, and it looks pretty burly as far as the thickness of the stanchions. It's got black stanchions, which is a big thing for me, and it was just the right price. I got this thing for $300 and it's brand new, so I thought it was worth a shot. We'll see how it performs though. So the first call to action is going to be removing the factory fork. We'll start by pulling the through axle and removing the front wheel. Next we'll unbolt the brake caliper, and last but not least, we will uninstall the compression cap as well as the two steer tube bolts on the stem. From there, the fork should drop right out. And with those 3 steps completed, you can see the fork is no longer in the head tube. I recommend just tying this up however which way, just to keep it out of your way while you're working on everything else. And with all the headset parts, it's important to remember which way everything came off. So I recommend also laying it out on a towel while it waits to go back on. As I stated earlier, my new fork is 1,900 grams and the fork that came off is 2,230, so that's a savings of 330 grams. The next and most annoying part of the process is going to be removing the crown race for the lower bearings in the headset. I recommend that you buy one of these crown race removal tools. You just kind of press it up against the crown race and hammer it down and it removes it. Still pretty hard, I'm not gonna lie, but it makes it easier, so I do recommend that. But you can just use a flathead and a hammer. You just got to be careful not to mar everything up, so keep that in mind. Alright, and with the help of my Park Tool hammer as well as the crown race removal tool from before, we have it, the crown race. Now we can move on to working on the new fork. Now as you compare these two forks side by side, you can see that the new one has a steer tube that's a mile long in comparison to the old one. So we're going to take measurements off of the old one, etch a little line on the new one, and then cut it to the same length. Alright, so the ideal length is 7 1/4 coming from the old fork. I like to use a pipe cutter to get through this, but it's really up to you. Some people like to use a hacksaw. Again, there's a few ways to take care of this task. And once you are finished with the cut, it's important to try to deburr and smooth it out as best as possible to make assembly easy. I always just use journeyman pliers because I used to do electrical work, and it comes out good enough for the job. Next up, we got to set the star nut. For setting the star nut, I 100% recommend getting a dedicated tool. I have the one by Pedro's. This is basically going to go around the fork. This piece is going to thread into the star nut itself, and once you thread it on, you basically just slide that over the fork and then hammer this bit here, and it sets it perfectly every time. It is 100% worth the money. If you don't have the proper tool to take care of this job, you will be stressing like crazy. Trust me, I've done it. So yeah, get one of these. A few taps later, and you can behold the utter perfection. The next step, you better grease up the steer tube because it's time to put on that crown race again. I don't have a specific tool for this. I use a piece of 1.5-inch PVC pipe and a hammer, and it works well for me, and it's super affordable, so I recommend you do the same. All right, so that's handled. The next thing we got to do is just re-lube up the bearings for the headset, grease up all of these mating surfaces, and reinstall everything. So give me a few moments. I'll be right back. So I may have gotten a little carried away since the last clip I recorded because, yep, it's done. But going off of what you saw me disassemble and the instructions that I went through, you should know how to get it back together. And if not, I'm always here to answer questions for you. I'm about to pull this thing down off the rack and just make sure all of the torque specs are correct. This thing should be ready to roll. Okay, so we're all done. And the bike looks sick, and it feels even sicker. I just lifted it up a moment ago when I was setting the sag. The front end is substantially lighter, so I can't wait to give it a ride. Unfortunately right now I can't because hurricane or tropical storm, whatever, Cristobal is knocking on my door, so we got to wait that out. But yeah, I'll give y'all some feedback on this probably through Instagram or something like that and let you know what I think about it. And here's one other shot that kind of just shows that the head tube angle has been slackened out a little bit, probably about 1/2 degree since I added the 10 extra mil travel up front. I think it looks pretty rad. Alright guys, as always, thanks so much for tuning in. If you have any questions, just hit me up in the comments, and then as always, like and subscribe for more. I'll see y'all around next time.